Welcome to the Hell is Chrome podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Dyer. Thank you so much for joining us. Um, Happy to be once again here talking with Raza de San Diego. If you are hearing this podcast, if you are tuning into the stream, if you care about soccer in San Diego, if you care about this community, then you are Raza. Thank you so much for being here and being part of this movement and this community. Uh, we are pushing forward as ever, and we have a lot of stuff to talk about this week. More and more events on the way. We are thick in the Euros. We are in the Copa America. There is just a ton of stuff going on. My head is spinning. I don't know what game is next and what's happening, but luckily we do have our producer and president of La Raza San Diego, John Cross, here with me. John, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Andrew. How are you doing?
Oh man, I'm doing pretty good. Pretty good, I think. It has been really hot, which is not cool. Like there's layers there, right? It's not cool, but it's also
Right.
not cool. And so I've got my fan blowing on me. I am still doing the edging myself, like not turning on the air conditioner. Maybe that's
Mm,
a pretty gross way to
yeah,
describe
be
it, but
careful what you say there.
you know, try not to run the AC. I've got the little window box fan going, pushing the air through. I'm yelling at my kid to open his door for the airflow. Like we need the air to flow, and it's God. I don't know how much longer I can do it. I might have to turn the air conditioner on, and like, man, these these bills are insane. The kid is going to have to do his like driving lessons. So I got
Oh,
my license in the state of Texas, and I don't know how much you know about Texas, but they don't really like do like a whole lot of regulating and government type stuff. I took driver's ed. They gave me a permit, no strings. You pass driver's ed, you get the permit. You do your range course or whatever. You do the street portion, and then you pass that, and then when you turn 16, they give you a license, and there's no strings on the license either. You're just another licensed driver. Um, Now, that's not the case in California. I'm learning. Really unfortunate because I took it at summer school at my high school. And it was all inclusive classroom, driving range, and street portion, all in the same like. I mean, this was 1995, so a few $100. You know, not only do you have to pay for like the classroom portion, but then you know you go and get the permit, but the permit doesn't count yet until they have a lesson with like a licensed instructor, and those
right.
lessons are $120 an hour, and they're in like 2 hour chunks. They have to have a total of 6 hours. And I'm not that good at math, but that is a lot of money on top of the money I already spent. And I'm just like, I mean, I guess I get it, right? Like, I'm out there driving too. I don't want people who, you know, did not go through training to. It's just a little bit frustrating. I'm embracing my reactionary, in light of the debate last week in the Supreme Court. I might have to start wearing red hats, and I'm gonna have to start trying to maybe adjust myself to the changing tides, and among them is complaining about government regulations. So there's my gripe of the week, I guess, is the cost of driver's ed.
So when you were in Texas, you said you did it over the summer and you did it at school, but you said you still had to pay?
Yeah, because it wasn't like a like I think the school hosted it, right, and they brought in but the instructor was not like a school employee, and they just hosted it during the summer. And I think there was a semester course as well, but like I wanted to do it. If you do it in the summer, you got it done in I think two, four, 6 weeks, right? So like 2 or 3 weeks classroom,
Right.
2 weeks at the or a week at the range, and then like 2 weeks on the street, and then you're done. So very simple.
Yeah, I'm old enough that it was part of my high school curriculum. When you were a sophomore, depending when your birthday was, you did your course either first semester or second semester. And that got you your permitting and everything. It was all paid for by the school. And then, right, yeah, like you said, go in and do your license. And we were driving out with friends as soon as I got my license, and you know, dropped my mom basically back off at home and picked up my friends and we went out. But yeah, it's
Yeah,
changed quite a bit
and
then. For the
and
better, really,
if I would have
but yeah, it's
known,
very
like
different.
if I would have known we would have done this, so he has to have his license, his permit for 6 months before he can get his license. You know,
Right.
if I would have known that, say 6 months ago, I would have done this 6 months ago. I didn't know, man. I don't. So yeah, now it's going to be, he's going to be damn near 17 years old by the time he gets his license, because these, this government bureaucracy, the big government, all these big government liberals in California, they really want to, they want to keep me driving my kid around. So
I
thanks a
keep you a
lot,
chauffeur.
Newsom. Now, you know what? I gotta admit, like there is something very like cathartic about complaining about Gavin Newsom and blaming everything that goes wrong in your life on Gavin Newsom. Like I understand the appeal for a certain portion of the community. Like it does feel pretty good to do that.
Yeah, you don't have to ever take ownership.
That's right.
It's
Yeah.
easy to blame the government, any portion of it. All right, we
Well,
ready to get into stuff for our show?
sure. Let's hit some the calendar events first before we dig into some of the more controversial items on the agenda. What does the calendar look like the next week? I know we kind of have to do this every week now, right? Because there's stuff going on every week, so we've got to just kind of hit it show to show,
Yeah,
right?
right. There's quite a bit, and especially there are a couple of summer soccer events that are new-ish because of I think the results and how things have played out, especially in the Euros. So this coming Friday and Saturday. So Friday, July 5th and Saturday, July 6th, there's going to be a couple of watch parties for the Euros. So Friday is Germany versus Spain. That's going to be at Fair Play at 9 a.m. And then we have England versus Switzerland on Saturday. That's going to be at Shakespeare's Pub. And that's also going to be at 9 a.m. And that's really actually it for right now. I'm sure there's lots of other watch parties you can go see. I mean, Fair Play is always a great place to go watch soccer. So is Shakespeare's. For all the other matches, these are just two that are very specific for SDFC watch parties.
All right. So, have you been to one of these summer of soccer events yet?
I have not yet, and my time's been a little busy with president stuff, so I haven't made it out to any of the watch parties anywhere. I don't think. I'm trying to think through now. I don't think I've made it to any of them yet. So I've been watching from home, and I've had some other meetings to do, and that's been taking my time.
So you are now a week and a day into your term as the president of La Raza de San
It feels
Diego.
like it feels like about 3 months right now.
Well, did anything happen? Was there is there a reason? What does the president of the supporters union do on a day to day basis? I'm just curious. Like, are you like texting this Egyptian guy? Like, are you like in the inner circle, or what's the day to day?
I would say, thankfully, no. I would say most of it's just conversations. It's just touching base with people, making sure we're all
Circling
on the
back,
right
that sort of
track. And
thing,
yeah, I
putting a pin in it,
it's
and then yeah.
right. Um, I think it's extra hard this last week because we had three of our four newly elected officers were all busy this last week. So I happened to be out of town. So then, we just trying to keep up with things as they're happening. That's all. And then trying to organize as we need meetings and other things, just trying to keep things moving forward. It's a lot of talking is really more what it is right now. I'd like to get into more working, like for all of us, and but right now it's just been there's been a lot of talk that's been happening.
So, speaking of a lot of talk that's been happening, I can't help but notice the conversation online and, of course, amongst the supporters. Um, the kind of the consternation and this, uh, this little row over our chosen name of the union, La Raza de San Diego, um, kind of, I guess it kind of blew up last week, uh, in that we've basically been told that the club does not want to recognize the union uh, named La Raza de San Diego. Now, this is a very complicated thing, I think, for us to talk about because, one, you are the president of the union and you have, I think, an obligation to represent the union to the public and to the club, and maybe exercising some restraint on your weekly supporters podcast is probably a reasonable and prudent thing to do. Of course, we are an independent podcast. We're not affiliated with any particular supporter group. But I would like to kind of toss the ball to you first. If you have any comments or would like to explain to our audience why you may not have any comments.
That's probably more accurate, I guess. And I hope I'm not disappointing too many people. But the executive team, even though we've all been busy, we are talking and we are staying in communication. Um, there's a lot of moving pieces right now, so we have agreed to not talk about any of the details that are happening, because we're still trying to get some clarification on some things as well. And I just, we think at this time it's just not going to be productive because there's already a lot of um, emotion, and comments, as you said, on social media. So we're just trying to maybe take the temperature down a little bit, get a good read on everything, and we're evaluating things, and we're talking about it. We're communicating internally along with the Alliance Council, or sorry, the Supporter Group Council, and we, at some point there will be some more public things that we'll talk about, but right now there's really nothing for us to say. And I guess what I'd like to say to the wider audience of people who are part of this union and any of the individual supporter groups is, for us at the moment, nothing has changed. It's still business as usual. I, I'm sure there's going to be some interesting conversations moving forward, but right now we are still, like we always have from the beginning, trying to build an inclusive, independent, welcoming union of soccer supporters, right? And we've been doing that from day one. We're going to continue to do that. Nothing for us really at the moment has changed. We're moving forward to try to build the most amazing section and take over all 5 of those sections on the north end at Snapdragon Stadium. So you'll be hearing more from us in terms of what we're doing as far as building and growing this union moving forward. Um, but the details of where we are right now with the club, yeah, we're not going to comment on that. Not today anyway on the podcast.
Yeah, this has been kind of difficult. Uh, I mean, I would say, it's difficult all around, but um, the difficulty that I am having personally is that just because of the nature of like my work and my kind of presence on social media, such that I have one, um, you know, I don't, I have a few thousand Twitter followers. I am far from an influencer or like having a big platform, right? Elon took my check away. He really cut my balls off when he did that to me. And I'm not going to pay for it. I'm not going to be one of those people, the terrible people, the worst people on Twitter. So it used to have, it used to come with a lot of power, a lot of like responsibility, because it really did boost your kind of voice. Like, I could tweet like a news item or something, and like it would just get pushed into people's timelines. And if I responded to somebody, it would be pushed to the top of their replies, right? And um, now you look at the top of the replies, and it's a bunch of like crypto dorks and anime nerds. I mean, I like anime. I'm sorry I'm not attacking anybody personally here, but um, it's anyway. I'm getting totally sidetracked. Anyway, because I kind of have a predilection to transparency and informing. I think I fundamentally believe that sunlight is the best disinfectant, and that when people are trying to keep secrets, uh, there's usually a nefarious reason to do so. I don't think there are good secrets unless it's a surprise party, in which case, don't tell me. Don't tell me what you got me for Christmas. But any other type of secret, it really it raises the cackles. It sends the spidey sense going off. But because I am a locals representative on this alliance council, right? Um, I am kind of exposed to information that maybe I would not be exposed to were I not on this council, right? So it presents kind of a little bit of a, what's my favorite three words, conflict of interest, whenever a news item comes up, and my inclination is to tweet it out, because that's what I do. I don't cover sports in my job, but like I do tweet about soccer, and I do tweet about this club, and I tweet about this union. So that's kind of right in my wheelhouse, so to speak. Um, so it's difficult whenever something like this happens that I have a very strong reaction to. And I think because it's out there, I need to just kind of lay it out for the audience a little bit. There was a meeting last week with the club. The union was informed. I don't know if it was official, unofficially. They were informed that the club wouldn't recognize our union if we continued with the name La Raza. Um, why this is, I don't know. I was not at that meeting, but I know that one person, Adrian, who was at the meeting, left the council at some point, I believe, during the meeting, and he started tweeting about what had occurred. So on, I think it was the next day, um, I quote tweeted Adrian, and I kind of spelled it out that the club had said this to the union reps at that meeting. And things don't happen in a vacuum. This was 2 weeks after the Chucky Mania event at the Shell, an event that was, I would say, 80% in Spanish, uh, featured a Latino artist singing songs in Spanish, and introducing their first big signing, a player from the Mexican national team. So for them to then turn around and tell the union, you can't call yourselves La Raza, it just it it tickles that little spot in your brain, like, this just isn't quite right. And I think that's maybe why my tweet is the one that kind of took off, even though I think Adrian was well ahead of me for sure in getting that information out there and kind of reacting to it. But yeah, there was a lot of reaction to it, and not a lot of it good. There's a lot of people, sometimes I forget this, believe it or not. There's a lot of people waiting in the wings, rooting for this thing to fail. They want SDFC to fail. They want it to embarrass itself. They want this supporters union to fail. They want it to be everything that they predict will be. You know, there are people that want it to be completely co-opted by the club, and they want it to be engineered and puppet mastered, and they want it to be phony. That way they can sit back and say, look, I told you it was going to be phony, it was going to be fake, it was going to be, you know, completely corporatized. And they kind of jumped on that. And, you know, I should have seen that part of it coming, but I know that not everybody was happy that the information got out there. I think there's a reason that they're not happy, because I think everybody knows that it makes the club look bad to do this. It makes the club look bad for it to get out there that you told us not to bring La Raza banners into the Chucky event. That makes them look bad. To refuse to recognize us over the name La Raza makes them look bad. So then that begs the question, why do it? Why resist this name so forcefully? And I don't know. And I know it seems like I'm just talking a lot here, but that's because I want to make sure people know John just cannot really comment on a lot of this. So I'm going to kind of run through
I'll
it a
have a
little
couple
bit.
comments when you're done. I have a couple
Okay.
things that I can...
If it's a correction, please interrupt me, because I do not want to. I mean, I joke about this podcast being mostly accurate, but I think with this, I need to make sure that I am being totally accurate. So if it's a correction, feel free to interrupt and jump in. But yeah, the whole thing just, there's just something nakedly hypocritical about it, and I think that's kind of what people pick up on. So I, you know, I don't know what is real here. I did reach out to the club through official channels. I asked for an on the record response and an on the record explanation as to why uh, they told the union it would not recognize it under the name La Raza. I asked them if they thought this might uh, be taken poorly by parts of the community that they have apparently, you know, otherwise been very accommodating toward, the South Bay and Latino community. Um, a handful of very like specific questions like that. Um, I emailed them last week. I think it was Thursday, Thursday or Friday, and um, asked them to get back to me by Monday. I did not hear back on Monday. I followed up this morning and did not hear back today either. That is through official channels. I sent like a, you know, very professional press inquiry like I would during at my normal job. Did not get a response. I reached out through unofficial channels or unofficial channel. Um, I can't get anybody to take my call. So I don't know what's happening at the club, how this is being taken, but um, you know, this is what happens. This is what happens when uh, you overstep. I think is kind of, this is, anybody could have seen this coming. Like, this is what happens if you try to bully your way into getting what you want and leveraging your corporateness, leveraging your power and your wealth against a group of volunteers from the community who are doing a lot of work for no pay to make this thing happen and to make this, you know, an incredible supporter section for this team. Um, I mean, this is what's going to happen if you try to bully them and people find out about it. They're not going to take it very well. I certainly didn't take it very well, and I think that was the reaction of a lot of people. I do want to address a little bit of, because we've talked about this already, but I don't know if people aren't listening, because I feel like we have talked about a lot of the critiques of the name La Raza. John, you and I have talked about it on this show. We've talked about it in our communities online, on Discord and in Slack. People don't agree 100%, right? Like everybody has their own take on it, but my my reading by and large is that the name has been embraced even by people maybe who were initially critical of it, um, and doubly so when the club tried to, dictate what the union calls itself. There's this long history of independence, in supporter groups and supporter culture, and one of the core tenets of the way supporter groups relate to the front offices of these clubs is there is a firewall, there is independence there, and there is, you to make it work, you have to have some kind of you know working relationship. There is some give and take there. You have to abide by certain rules. There's going to be codes of conduct, all of that stuff, of course. But like the operation of the union and the SGs is completely independent. We hold our own elections. We decide what songs to sing, what to chant. That's all done independent of the club, and the least of which is what the name of the group is. That is also done independent of the club. So anytime, and this we are not the supporters union to run into this kind of a conflict, but anytime the corporate entity of the club tries to assert a level of control that crosses that line, you're going to have a very you're going to have this kind of reaction, and I don't see how anybody in that building was surprised with the reaction that it got.
My turn.
Yeah, I've been going for a while.
Yeah.
I'm putting myself to sleep. Sorry.
All right. Couple of things. I won't comment directly on any of the social media and stuff that's out there. People can go read that for themselves and take whatever they want from that. Um, I will say, I think I just want to be clear. Ideally, we really want to be on the same page with the club, right? We want to be able to work together and have a smooth relationship and to fulfill what both of us have said as a goal for the supporter group to, like, control, for lack of a better word, but kind of take ownership of the entire North End and fill that game in, game out, and become that
First of
heartbeat
which is
of the
to
stadium.
rename it from the North End. We cannot move on to DEF until we get
Well, I
through ABC.
just talking about that area of Snapdragon, but to take those 5 sections, right? So that's, I still think that that is a goal for both groups, right? This is where we want to be, and of course, it's always going to work better when everybody's on the same page and everybody's supporting each other towards that same end. But no matter what, in any relationship, there's going to be hiccups along the way. We're in a hiccup right now. That's all I'll call it at the moment. Now, how we come out of that on the other end, is going to depend on a lot of things. But there's going to be road bumps. Things are going to happen. There's going to be times where the union and the front office don't agree on things, and this is probably, we're probably getting into an area of things where we're going to have some more serious conversations. Maybe I'll just say that, as to how things are going to proceed forward. But ultimately, we all want the same thing. Right? And I think if we keep that in mind, that kind of helps, hopefully, helps move things forward and to be proactive. I will say, yes, there are people sometimes, and maybe to comment a little bit on social media in terms of sometimes people get upset and may post things on social media. And you had mentioned about one of our members posting something that you then retweeted. And one thing I'd like to, I guess, make sure everybody kind of remembers is like, I think we really want those type of people in our group. They may not have handled it the way I might have handled it, but that is someone with an unbelievable amount of passion who sent that original tweet, who has passion for his supporter group, for this union, for our wider soccer community as a whole. And I wouldn't trade that for anything, right? I'll take all the ups and downs that come with that to have someone who is that passionate as part of our group. And that's what we want. And sometimes, you know, passionate people, when confronted with things, can react certain ways. And I would say for the individual we're talking about, I don't disagree with things that have been said. And I again, I may have not have done it that way, but I completely understand the anger and the frustration, right? And I think we have some people who are angry and frustrated right now. And that's part of
Yep.
our internal conversations of what we're going to do and how we want to best move forward. And we want to maintain independence, certainly. Like I don't want to like gloss over this. Like we're not maintaining our independence, but we also want to channel some of our energy that's been built up into ways that will benefit us in the long run as a union and allow us to take big progressive steps to be this inclusive, independent, welcoming supporters union that we all expect it to be, who are part of this and part of building it. And we want to be able to show the rest of our wider community here in San Diego of what we're trying to build and what they can expect for part of this. And hopefully they will choose to be a part of it.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. You know, I know we're talking a little bit about Adrian. I think most people listening or watching this know who he is. Fixture in 109, leader of the drum line, and definitely one of the, I don't know, he's the kind of person, and I said this before we came on, but like he does not like try to be a leader, but people just follow him, right? Like, um, because of he is very an authentic person, and that passion is real, especially for his community. He does come from Brio Logan. It's where he grew up. Now, I recognize that we are two white guys talking about this community, and that should be, I guess at least noted ahead of what I'm going to say. But there there has long been a distrust of the greater, wider San Diego community in Barrio Logan. This is part of their history. This is part of San Diego's history. When the California Highway Patrol wanted to build a substation under the San Diego Coronado Bridge, it was the community that refused to let them do that, and to the point of putting themselves in front of the bulldozer, so to speak. And that is why Chicano Park exists, because of that kind of spirit of La Raza in the community. This was during the Chicano movement that a lot of this happened, which I mean, we call it the Chicano movement, but it's a civil rights movement is what it is and was. So we don't get it confused because it's referred to as the Chicano movement. It was a civil rights movement. So this community has been historically, not treated well by the government. They built the five right through that neighborhood. Um, I've heard stories of sailors back in the day coming across from going out from the base and just looking to beat up people, like just to go looking for trouble in the neighborhood. That white sailors, I should say, that is part of the history. Another, part of the history is because it's such an iconic location, Chicano Park, and with the murals. Um, you know, a lot of people from outside the community try to go into the community and, I don't know, commercialize or try to use that visual landscape for commercial means. I don't know if you remember this. It's a long time ago. This is a deep cut, but um, in San Diego City Beat, one of my old colleagues there wrote a story about there was a white girl trying to open up like a smoothie place in Barrio Logan, and she had posted this really cringy, like Southern California type of white girl video on Instagram about opening up her smoothie shop or whatever. And like it just got such an ugly backlash after she wrote about it. Alex Zaragoza, she wrote about it in City Beat. She, the lady, did not end up opening that smoothie shop, but it was pretty controversial at the time. And there was also even more recently a lot of concern about San Diego Loyal going into the community for photo ops to shoot video, and kind of use the community as part of their marketing and branding. Now, I think obviously Loyal worked through a lot of that and ended up partnering with the Chicano Federation and doing that jersey, which is their best kit that they ever made, in my opinion. And that kind of, but even that caused some concern and consternation. So now,
Right.
2024, you have SDFC. They do the concert. I mean, the Radiant Shell, like you, depending on which way you come, you have to go through Logan to get there. They they have this scarf that they put out with a low rider on it in the SDFC shield. It says San Diego.
I think I have that.
It's a good looking scarf, but so clearly you are speaking to this community and you are using its cultural artifacts in your own commercial marketing. I don't think these scarves are free. I think you have to pay for them. So that is part of what is happening here. And yeah, that is the community. And it isn't just, pictures of lowriders, and it isn't just drone shots of Chicano Park. There were living, breathing people who live there, and many of them are part of this supporter union. And I would try to keep that in mind as I maybe navigate this particular issue. I do want to read. I don't have his permission to use his name, so I'm going to read it anonymously. But there was a post in this was in the locals Discord, and it really spoke to me, and it really kind of put a definition on something I've struggled that I've kind of known inside, but like hadn't been able to communicate or really appreciate. So I'm just going to read it. I'll just start here. He says it's an important point. If the idea is that people who traditionally would identify as La Raza are the ones extending the offer of inclusion, it's worth consideration. Very often, when white people talk about inclusion and integration, what tends to happen is there's an expectation that we'll have a bunch of different types of people, but it will be culturally white and mainstream. That's one thing he says he likes about the chants in Spanish, is that he, as a white person, is the one expected to do the cultural work for once. And I think that just really rung my bell when I read that, because I know that there is a line of thought that says, hey, if we have the most vanilla, nondescript, safe name, logo, shield, whatever, then nobody can say anything bad about it, and it's inclusive to everybody. But this point about you're still coming at it from a white space or a mainstream space, right? You're bringing everybody into something that is culturally white, or at the very least culturally nondescript, you know, and maybe people aren't used to having to do the same for other cultures and cultures that are not white or mainstream. But why would that be any different? It shouldn't be. And that is all that I think is happening. I mean, that is, I think, the most, and that's at the most extreme end of if you want to interpret the name La Raza as being only for Mexican Americans, which, as we've said and others have said repeatedly at this point, it is not. That is not the way we've defined it, and that is not the way we are, moving forward with our union. Um, but if you do still insist on the racial and cultural, definition of the term, I think here's a very good example of a way to think about that. As all it is asking people to do a little bit of the cultural legwork themselves for once, instead of you know assimilating into a more neutral or white space. Um, I don't know how else to say it. Anytime you talk about race, it's a touchy issue, and big corporations, politicians, whatever, don't like to get on it, don't want to talk about it, don't want to do anything that is going to offend anybody. But when you do that, sometimes you end up just offending everybody.
Yeah, a couple of things I'd like to add about the name, and maybe this is the teacher in me. Um, I think I, I would imagine for a lot of people, whatever their background and biases gives their initial impression of the name. And if, you are determined to see it a certain way, you will, right? If you're determined to make it about race, you will make it about race. I would encourage people though to be a little more open-minded and investigate. We all know idiomatic expressions. We all know how words can, when they're put together, can mean something very different than the literal interpretation of each individual word. We know that in languages, certain words can cover a broader range of meaning than they can in English. If anybody, and I'm not going to go through like a teacher lesson here, but because I don't know if people will listen to it anyway if I explain it, but you really should look at the etymology of the word and where it comes from. Because what we use in terms of the word race and how we define it, and also in Spanish, has the original roots back in Latin. And if you understand the development of how it evolved in each of the communities and got passed along and eventually adopted in Spanish, you can see a lot more clearly, how and why the word is treated differently. And the word race in American English is such a loaded term. And I get it why it scares people. But that's not the way it's used. It can be like that, but Raza has a much broader meaning than the way American English, especially, we would say race, right? And it's a word that, I guess, to use more common vernacular, that triggers people, right, when they hear that word in English. But like you read that comment from the locals, I think, and again, I think this is the teacher in me talking, is I think this is good. I think this forces people to investigate a little more deeply and look at it from a different perspective. And I really hope people would approach it that way and understand that La Raza and Raza just itself, the way it's used frequently within San Diego and communities is is no different than in English how we'd say my people. Like, these are my people. And this is how we're using it in terms of La Raza de San Diego. All of us. Like,
People of
these
San
are our
Diego.
San Diego people, right? Who love soccer and want to build something special in this community. And I hope, you know, some people can get past their initial bias to look at it a little more deeply and maybe look at it through some different eyes and challenge their own way of thinking a little bit. But that's really what it is. It's our people of San Diego, this soccer community that we have, and this amazing experience that we are trying to build. And that's what it's going to be. I mean, we're going to make it that because the individuals here are committed to that. So I hope even if it's, uncomfortable for you right now, the name, I would hope you at least give it a chance or give us a little time to see what we're building and and how that's going to come about.
Yeah, I thought we had put this thing to bed a month ago. I'm really, frustrated to still be having the same debate. And part of that is because I feel like we have explained this over and over again to several people. Um, but they just keep coming back to the same thing, which either tells me they don't believe us or they're just not listening. And either one of those is not a good sign of the level of communication that exists between us and I mean some of these people I will admit that are in our among our own groups, but like having the same argument and bringing up the same points over and over again, you're really just talking over each other and not to each other and not receiving, because yeah, to me this was settled day one whenever we said this is what our name is and this is how we're using the word and this is what it means to us and this is how what we intend to be. That was it. That was over. um I don't know who, and once again, I do think there's a read between the lines thing. I think whenever normally when a reporter reaches out to somebody, either a government official, private company, normally you get a response, even if the response is we're not going to respond to that or we're not going to comment on that. Like usually you will get something, but like to receive nothing in response to my two inquiries, I mean, you got to read between the lines. Sometimes silence speaks louder than words, and I think you know that they're not willing to go on the record that they've taken this position. Uh, you know, tells you a lot about their convictions and the courage of those convictions and how confident they are in those convictions. Again, I don't know where this is coming from. I don't think it's I don't think it's the people that we deal with on a face to face basis. I think this is coming from somewhere somewhere up there, somewhere in the ether. I don't think it's people that watch the Hellas Chrome live stream or listen the next day on their preferred podcast app. They probably should, though. They probably should be listening to what we are saying. They probably should be listening to this union. They probably should be attending the meetings with the union and be part of this conversation. We just got through, bargaining with my labor union that I am, a member of, and this is part of like bargaining in labor. Now there is a difference here, but the stakeholders are at the table. That is a fundamental part of bargaining. That is a fundamental part of you know communicating and coming to agreements. Now if there are stakeholders that are not at the table and the people at the table are just go-betweens, you know I don't see how that's a very how that's productive at all, because you know the message gets lost in that game of telephone between them. I think people making these decisions or um, trying to assert a level of control over this union that they have no place to be doing, um, should probably be at the table with us and having these discussions. But again, I don't know that is the case. I'm just saying, somebody isn't listening. I don't know who it is, but they're not listening.
And I'm going to reiterate, in case anybody's joined us late, that I'm not commenting on any of the details of what's going back and forth. Um, but again, just in case anybody came in late on the live stream, yeah, we're we're working through some things right now, and I'm sure there will be some public comments later. But until we sort through some other things, we're just not commenting publicly um, on any of the internal workings between the club and at least the executive officers right now.
Right. Because I'm commenting. So,
Right.
they're about to boot me off of this thing anyway. I'm sure it's fine. Not that I want to be booted off, but it is difficult for me to, you know, I feel obligated to, as small as our audience may be, I do want them to trust me and trust that I am telling them the truth and that I am not withholding any information from them. I I don't keep secrets very well, I guess. Um, but I will again to circle back on something I started to say, quite a while ago, is that nothing that I put out on Twitter or even talked about here is privileged information, right? Like none of this was gleaned from a meeting I was at. It's all stuff that is out there or was out there. You know, I quote tweeted Adrian, and I kind of contextualized what was happening in a way that you know I think was compelling to people enough to where it got a bunch of retweets and a bunch of comments and stuff. So that's what I did. I did not use any privileged information or you know use my position on the council or information that I'm privy to because of that position to you know push anything out. But that is again, this was stuff that was out there. Maybe I put a finer point on it.
All right. Were there anything else that we had? I think we've kind of exhausted that topic here for the evening.
Yeah, until next week, and we can do a part two.
Right.
I'll be bringing on the Chicano Studies professor from San Diego State to walk us through the history of the. No, I'm not. That might not be a bad idea. I think it would probably be good for everybody in this community to take a Chicano Studies class at your local community college, which can be done at a very low cost. Okay. And it will make you a better person and a more informed member of this community. That's my pitch. I think I'm, as much as I feel like we've kind of focused on a lot of negative in this conversation. Like, I have nothing but like positive feelings about La Raza and the La Raza Union and our future as La Raza de San Diego. Like, I think it's going to be phenomenal, fantastic. I think we are going to set the standard for what a impactful community-oriented supporters union is, what it looks like. With that name, I think we are going to show people and surprise people with what we accomplish. When I look around the other supporter groups, whenever I hear the drums, whenever I look at the chants, when we do the chants, you know, whatever your preconception of what the SDFC supporter section is going to look and sound like, that has no bearing on what it will end up looking and sounding like. And the fact that the community and the soccer community and the people who have come out to do this work, who have come out to write chants and do all of this administrative work, this legwork, meetings upon meetings, the fact that the majority of them are, from the Latino community, I think that should be indicative of, the community that is going to come out and be part of your supporter section. Not that is exclusive to anybody from the community. The elected president, I will point out, we try to be colorblind, but John is a white man, and his peers in the union elected him president. this is not a, you know, this is not like, only for Mexican Americans. This is not only for Latinos. This is for everybody, and that's the way we've always conducted ourselves. Um, I have never felt anything but welcome with any group, no matter if it is because I went to a watch party in North County or because I went to a drum circle in Chula Vista or in National City. Um, I've always been welcome, embraced, and I'm very thankful for that. Um, that I have been so welcome into this community and into this community of supporters. And I don't speak Spanish, but I do play a drum, and nobody looks at me sideways, doing these chants or participating in these chants, and they don't look at anybody sideways. Everyone is welcome. If people want more chants in English, write more chants in English. Bring them to a drum circle. Bring them to an event. If we want more white people in the supporter section, then it's on the white people to come and join it. I don't know how to put a finer point on this, but you get what you get. Who comes out? You get who comes out for you, and this is your these are your supporters. You're not going to change that. You're not going to be able to dictate, um, the demographics of the supporter section. It is a self-selecting, by its very nature. This is a self-selecting experience, and a certain kind of soccer fan is going to be attracted to it. It is not. It's for everybody. Everybody is welcome, but it's not for everybody. Some people like to sit down at at soccer matches. Some people like to actually watch the match. Who I don't know who they are, because that's not what I do. I'm a supporter. I play drums. I watch my capo. I try to make sure I'm on beat. I look out at the other drummers, and I try to make sure we're all on beat. I try to make sure we're all, safe. That nobody is, you know, we talk about security and stuff, but like, I am watching the other supporters. That is the experience, and that is what I pay for when I go to a soccer match, is to do that, not necessarily watch the match. Not everybody wants to do that. Not everybody wants to wave a flag. It really hurts and it makes your arm sore. It's a good workout, but not everybody wants to sing and yell for an entire match, and that's fine. We're not telling you you have to do that. Now, if you come into the section, you have to do it, but you're welcome to come in and out as you please, as ever. But like, this is a self-selecting uh, uh, experience. This is not a passive, spectator experience. This is an active. You're involved in the match. You're involved in game day. You are. I look at I look at game day as a performance, right? Whenever you are a musician and you have a performance, you practice, you make sure your parts are right, you make sure your drumsticks aren't cracked, you make sure you have your drum key, you make you prepare for your performance. We warm up, right? Like, it, being a supporter and being in the supporter section is a performance, and sometimes it's a lot of fun, but sometimes it is also a lot of work, and not everybody who's going to be coming to these matches wants to come to them to do work. So I don't know. I am going on a bit of a tangent here, I know, by the look in your eye, John, but it just I don't I get so frustrated having to explain what this is over and over again, to people that I feel like should already know that.
Yeah, and I get your frustration, but I would think most of the people who actually listen to this podcast are probably not that audience. And I'd like to use what you said as a little bit of a segue, because last week we announced that there were going to be some committees to sign up. And you should be hearing from your leaders. So I don't know for anybody's listening out, for each of your individual supporter groups. Hopefully, your leaders have shared that with you. If not, there will be a form that will be coming out tomorrow. I want to thank Andrew because he did the bulk of the work of setting that up. I have taken it and made a couple of tweaks, but that is going to be out tomorrow because internally we are also having a meeting within the wider La Raza leadership. So I will be sharing it with them there for everybody who's at the meeting along on our Discord. So we'll try to have a better way of getting it out just than communicating. So there's an actual form
Like a
that people can,
centralized,
a
instead of
centralized place where,
7 groups with,
yeah,
oh, I got these people, like everybody's going to one place. This is part of like the organizing thing for the union, is a lot of more centralized communication.
right. And so if any of about what we talked about tonight on the podcast has got you interested, excited, if you are aggravated over all the social media stuff, whatever it is, if you've got some pent up energy and you want to see some action happen, we want you. Please sign up for one of these committees. So I'm letting you know we record on a Tuesday. So by Wednesday, this form is going to be out and available. Ask your leaders for the link to the form so that you can sign up and start getting involved on these committees and start helping us build this amazing community that we want to build.
All right. Thanks, John. So we'll be back next week. We will let you know what, hopefully, we've made some progress by then and we have some better news to share. I'm hoping that by next week we are able to put this aside, put it to bed, and move on with all of the important work we still have yet to do. I think this has already delayed the forming of these committees by about a week. So we did want to do this last week, but yeah, we have a lot of work to do, and I hope next week we really are well on our way to doing it. So until then, thank you so much.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Bye.